Please don't stay on the stairs, because then the others that do come later, they just can't sit. There's plenty of place, so just speak something for you. Okay, so we've been introduced. There's not much more to say. I'm Tomek, this is Adam.
Yeah, I'm Adam, hello.
We're going to talk about Supler today.
Yeah, Supler is the correct pronunciation.
Okay, so basically, yeah, the name comes from Supler. Who knows what Supler are? Who knows hardcore koksu? Okay, Supler is the thing that you take for your muscles to grow when you go to the gym. Who has ever done a form in your day job? Only some, so little? Okay, and so who finds it cumbersome? So, okay, cool, thank you. There's 3 of you. So that's the project is for 3 of you. It's very cumbersome because basically, usually it looks like on the back end you prepare some data, then you send it to the front end, and then in the framework of your choice, you make all these validations, you handle the errors, you have to craft how the form is laid out and so on, and you write it every single time. And then you have to rewrite it actually on the backend side, because the validation on the client side is not enough. So you have to rewrite the very thing same again.
Okay, and of course, Supler is an answer to these problems. So Supler is a library, it's not a framework. I think it's an important distinction to rapidly develop forms, web forms. So our main aim is to make writing complex forms easier. It consists of 2 parts. There is a Scala DSL to define the forms on the backend, and there you define on the validations and so on, how you bind the form to the model. And there's also a JavaScript form renderer so that you can actually show the form to the user. And we have a helpful diagram, hopefully helpful, which explains how Supler works.
Okay.
So Tomek, can you explain us how Supler works?
So now in this very interesting diagram, you can see a few things. Basically, there are 2 different parts. The parts in the rectangles are what Supler is doing for you, and the roundish things are whatever your framework has to take over. So basically, it starts on the backend, and there's a, we hope, a nice Scala DSL for defining the forms. You're going to see it in action later when we do the live demoing. And then you create the form bases always on an entity, and then it's serialized into JSON. And then it has to be somehow exposed via REST or whatever to the front end. And then on front end, you have to take the JSON that was generated by the backend. And what we do is we take that is the Supler part of JavaScript, and it will render the form for you. Then, whenever anything changes on the form, so that is the field changes, or someone clicks a button, or things like that, the whole thing is serialized into JSON again, and it has to be sent somehow to the backend. And on the backend, you'll have the Supler API to take that JSON, apply it to the form, and then the result will be sent back to the form again via JSON, and it will show the results. So it will run the validations. The validations will be run on the backend, obviously, but it will show the result of validations. Also, what we've done on the front-end side is that the most common validations are going to be run also on the web browser. So this will be like required fields, simple numeric validations, the usual ones. And at the end, you have to implement somehow the persistence. This is also not handled by Supler. It will only run one of the actions, and then you'll have access to your code to do something with the result entity. Okay, so
yeah. So Tomek explained more or less what Supler is. So what is it not? It's not a complete framework which will define how you should write your web application. It is a library which you can use with your existing web framework. So we can use any kind of persistence, any kind of JavaScript libraries on the front end. You can handle, well, you need to handle the lifecycle of the backing objects yourself. and so on, right? So you can use it with Play, you can use it with a Java web framework, you can use it with any Scala web framework, and so on. So I guess it's pretty important that you can use Supler for the form part and use your existing tool set for all the other stuff that your web application does. And so after the introduction, a short introduction of ourselves.
Who are we?
Yeah, who are we actually?
We're coders at SoftwareMill, and we've done some open source. Supler is one of them. Adam's responsible for the things he's going to describe.
Yeah, right. So we both have blogs and we have Twitter accounts. We are doing some open source projects like Supler, Macquire, and yeah, our company, we are a software house here in Poland, and we do projects obviously in Scala, but also sometimes in Java and Groovy. And I guess that's it for the introduction, and now we will proceed to the live demo, which will work or not, we'll see.
Yeah, let's pray to the demo gods a little bit. Okay, so I don't know if you got an idea of what Supler is, but maybe this will help you if you didn't get that. We're gonna create a simple form first, and we're gonna write it live. So we have an entity of a troll, which is a case class, so it's gonna be immutable and everything, all the good things about case classes. It has a first name, height, optional bio, and a gender, which is, the gender is an enumeration, as you can see. And we have created here an instance of the troll. And the reason is that you have to have the instance of your entity from somewhere. In your application, you take it probably from the database. But here, it's just a demo. So it's just an object. OK, so we've started with a Spray server, which is now just serving HTTP simple HTML files and doesn't do anything else. So, let's show that index. In index, there's plenty of bootstrap things. What is important is we've added the Supler.js, and there's also a form container. And in this form container, we're going to render the form. And also below, we get there. No, never mind. So let's start with a class, which will have the form defined in. Actually, it's going to be an object. Okay. So let's import the Scalar DSL, or Supler, and okay, this is a troll form. So the form is of type troll. This is the entity that's going to be backing the form, and then is lowercase form. Okay, and now we have a list of fields that we want to show. So let's start with a simple text field. Okay, f.field, and then you see there's an auto-completion nicely from our entity. So we're going to just show the first name, we'll add some label, and that's it. So we have the form. It should show one field. That's not very complicated, but we'll just start from that. And now we need to write the part that will actually serve the form for the client. So we add a new directive, which will be on REST form 1.json, and this will take the form, and on get request, it will serialize it. So we'll take the troll form. There's plenty of imports we need to add because this is Scala. Okay, instances. Yeah. Okay, so now we have our form, troll form. It takes the instance that we want to show on our form and generate JSON. We'll generate the JSON. And as you can see, this is JSON for a support servlet, and it will nicely produce the application, produce the JSON. Okay, and now the JavaScript part. So we've exposed our JSON with the whole form definition. We're going to see how it looks like later. And now we want to take it, process it, and render. So we'll take our form container that, remember, we put on index HTML. We'll create a new form of Supler, and we'll just pass the container. And this empty brackets is options. We're not using any right now. We're going to get there. So now once the document is ready, we want to run the get on our REST form JSON that we've just implemented. And once the JSON comes back, we want to render it on the form. So basically, this is how your front end will look like all the time. You can customize it, but if you just want to use the out-of-the-box functionality, there's nothing more on the front end you'll need, except of the sending back the form, so it will get there. Highlighting, yes. And this is, okay, this is something just, you don't need to do that. We want to show how the JSON looks like, so we've added a new, another div that will show the JSON that comes in, and it will just highlight it with some JavaScript library for highlighting. Okay, we can start it, and let's see if it works. There's a very low possibility, but maybe it will. Okay, so it worked. It's magic. Okay, so we see that there's a first name. It has a Zaxabar on it. So let's see how the JSON looks like. The highlighting didn't work because there was a spelling. Never mind. You can see pretty well. The important part is the fields. You see that you'll get a list of the fields with all the properties it needs for the rendering. Basically, that's it. And then below, there's a field order. You can lay out those fields differently, but now it's just one below another. Okay, let's add some more fields. So there's a height, which is a numeric. We'll add some validation to it. Okay, so the validation says that it has to be greater than 100 and less or equals than 199. This will also be translated into JavaScript validations automatically, so they will be run both on the browser and the backend. There's a bio, which is an optional field, so it's not going to be forced to be required. We'll leverage that, and also what else? We also create a dropdown from the gender field. So this toString is just a function that will produce labels out of the values. So this is just toString in that case. And the possible values will generate all the values that we need to show on the label, on the dropdown. So it's just all the values of the gender enumeration. Okay. And in your case, the dropdown might have been queried from the database. Very similarly. Okay, so you can see that we haven't changed anything on the front end. That was the idea. We just changed the definition on the back end. And you can see that the validations are working if you click something. We need a button first, yeah, because there's nothing to validate. Okay, so we're going to add an action that will save our troll once it's changed. Okay, so maybe start from the server side. What we're going to need now is the endpoint that will accept the endpoint that will accept the posts of the changes of the form, basically. Okay, but before we do that, Adam is adding an action. The action will take a troll and we'll print line just whatever we got from the front end. And then the action will return nothing. The action has to return something. Maybe this is something to change in the future, so you don't have to do that. But in that case, we're just returning nothing. We could have returned just a string to show that the troll has been saved on the form. And we're just going to add that action to our form. So you can nicely add with the plus. We haven't invented a new operator for that. And we're going to now, so you can see that Adam is now in that get. It's not returning the troll form. He's returning the troll form with save. And on the post endpoint, we're going to accept JSON. And you just take the form, apply the entity. Maybe in your case, you'd load it from database again, process it with whatever came from the front end, and then return the generate JSON again. And it doesn't compile. The reason is that something's wrong. what does it say? Oh yeah, there's no complete missing. Okay, so now the front end. Okay, so that's the last thing we need to add on the front end is the support of actually sending the serialized form to the front end. So let's just add something that we need to copy paste, but that's how you usually code in these days. So we've added a send form that just uses jQuery to Ajax post something with the form value that's run with JSON stringify, and we need to add it to the options. So just say the send form function is that send form, and Supler will take care of that. Okay, and also there's this client code. We want to see how the JSON looks like the one that's been sent to the backend. Okay, that should work now. Okay, so there's the save button. It's magic. Okay, let's start saving. Okay, so this one has to be equal or less to 199. That's fine. Now we can save and see. Okay, we've received that troll. The height, maybe change the gender again, and so put something. Yeah. Okay, so you can see this worked. You can see that the none has been changed to sum of ZZZ. This is the bio, and the female work. So now, if we want to see how the send thing looks like to the form, this is very straightforward. So there's just a list of fields, and they just have their values, and that's it. There's no magic. Okay. You can see how. So, okay. So that's basically it for the first demo. Now
for the second demo. So so far the form was quite simple, and as we said initially, Supler is rather thought for complex forms. So we don't really have time to code a whole complex form here. So we have prepared one before, just to show you some of the more advanced features. So first of all, like the example builds on what we have seen before. So maybe Tomek, you can show the model first. Yeah, and close. Yeah. Okay, so we still have trolls. We have now added a new field to trolls. Trolls like some mountains because they live in mountains. So we have like a sub-entity mountain, right? And each troll has a list of mountains that he or she likes. Each mountain is in a specific country and in a specific mountain range. So we have some mountain instances. We have a troll instance. Okay, so that's like our model, a bit extended. So then we have the forms. Now the forms are where the interesting things happen. So first of all, we have a mountain form, right? So we want to display the troll with a list of mountains which the troll likes. So we need to have like a subform which displays the details of the mountain. So the mountain form is like, it starts quite conventionally, right? So we have a field for the name, we have a field for the mountain height, where we have some validations, we have a select one field for the country, we have a select one field for the mountain range. Then we also have some actions. So we want to be able to delete and add mountains to a troll, right? So we need to have a delete action on the mountain, right? So when you create embedded forms in Supler, you can embed any form inside any other form, and the form that is being embedded doesn't have to know anything about the form in which it is embedded, right? So these are completely separate forms. Still, like when we want to delete a mountain from a troll, right? We have to modify the parent instance, right? The troll. So we need to parameterize the mountain form with the actual delete action because the delete action modifies the parent, right? So here we have the form parameterized with an action, right? It's a simple method. We are just using Scala. So nothing very complex, right? So and then we are defining the action, the delete action. The delete action. Delete action is over, up, 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 up. It's on the mountain. Yeah. Okay, never mind. Yeah, so that's the delete action. And we are just using that method that was being passed to us. Okay, so now going to the troll form below, you can see that we have, again, the first name field, right? We have the height field, which is like an independent field. Like fields can live on their own, and they can be reused in multiple forms. We have some actions which change the state of the object. We then have the subforms. We have then the list of mountain that we want to show, and these are subforms, right? So we are using the subform method to create the field, and the subform method takes a list of the subentities and the actual form which should be shown, right? So here we have the mountain form, and as the action, we pass in a parent action, so that's an action which changes the parent, so changes the troll, right? And the action receives the troll, the mountain, and the index of the mountain, right? And it can delete it, it can move it up, move it down, do whatever. Okay, so that's like the basics of the form. So maybe let's show how it works in practice. Hopefully it does work in practice. And yeah, we just have to change. Yeah, so that's our form, and it's not, it's almost the right one. Yeah, more or less it works. Right. So you can see that we have a list of subforms. We can delete subforms. We can add new ones. We can add. We can save them. Like what we would expect exactly. So all the form re-rendering, sending data when is necessary, and so on. That's all handled by Supler. You just need to provide the function which actually sends the data, right, and the endpoint. Right. So here you can see that there's a message that the troll was actually persisted. Right? Yeah, okay, so that's like the basic form. So let's see some of the other things. So first of all, if we go again up to the mountain form, you can see that on the height we have a custom validator, so you can quite easily write custom validators. Here we have a validator which checks that the number is not equal to 3129, right? Because a mountain cannot be 3,129 meters high. Yeah, we are just using it just as a normal validator. It's like a standalone value which we can then use in the form. Yeah, we are using it over here. And if we actually go to the form and try entering 3129, yeah, we get the error message that we have specified. Okay, another thing is that I wanted to show. All right, so dependent select fields, right? So here we have, on the mountain, we have a country and the name of the mountain range, right? And the list of possible mountain ranges depends on the country selected, right? So we have like dependent select fields. That's quite common in forms. So here what you do simply is when you create a select one field, you need to provide a method which retrieves the possible values given the entity, right? So here simply we are giving the mountain. We just have to look up the ranges in the selected country, okay? And yeah, so here we have like the possibilities, and that's simple Scala lookup. Like we get the mountain and we have to return the possible ranges, okay? So if we go to the form and we actually try to change things, like we change the country, you can see that the possible mountain ranges change as well, right? And that is again handled automatically by Supler. You don't really need to add any specific code, right? On the front-end side, we didn't really change anything comparing to our original demo. It's still just getting the JSON and rendering it and providing the providing the send from function. Okay, so going further. Yeah, how can we customize rendering? Okay, so usually like 95% of the form is going to be rendered in a normal way, like without any customizations, right? But then there's the 5% where you need some special way of displaying a field. And there is a way, there are two ways in the Supler to override how a field is rendered. You can either override it with JavaScript, or you can override it with HTML templates. So if we would show the HTML template here. So here we have a HTML template. The template can be applied to a specific field, to all fields of a given type, or to fields with a given render hint. So here we have a render template, a template which is applied only to the first name field. And the template redefines how the field is laid out. Okay, so there are various templates at various levels of granularity. And yeah, you can see that the label on the first field is a bit different, right? Because we have added some text there, but the template can do anything. The template can put the label under the field or like anything you want, right? It's like custom code. And you can also do it in JavaScript if you need to add some custom behavior. Yeah. Yeah, the idea decided that it's time to stop working. Okay, final thing is how you can lay out the fields. So usually the fields are laid out one below each other, right? So just as they are defined in the list. You can of course redefine the field order on the back end and on the front end, but you can also lay out fields one next to each other. So we have used a Scala operator for that, double pipe, because it's a natural thing, right? Double pipes means one next to each other. It's, yeah, okay. So we are using, the default renderer is Bootstrap 3. You can override it. This is a pluggable thing. You can override it with a different front-end framework quite easily, but it's responsive by default. So if the screen is too narrow, it renders them one after another. But if we make it wider, you can see that the fields are actually rendered in one line. Okay. All right, so here we have seen that we have rendered the subforms as a table, right? We can also render the subforms as a list. So if we change the render hint from stable to as list, and if we restart the server, we will see that things will be laid out differently. So again, we can customize how the fields, so these are two basic subform layouts, either as a list or as a table. But we can customize how the individual fields look in each table as well. Okay, so I guess this, did I miss something or not? Okay, okay, so I guess that's more or less most of the features that we wanted to show. So we have one more slide left. Up. No, okay. Okay, so the project is on GitHub. It's open source under Apache 2, so you can use it for free and clone it and contribute, of course. We have some documentation where there's a step.
Very good.
Yeah, it's very good, of course. I wrote it myself. So there's a step-by-step guide on how to actually use Supler in your project. And if you have any questions, we'll be around here for the rest of the day and the party. Yeah. Okay, so maybe a bit of summing up of the future. We like to see it. Since the backend part is going to be one for all, but we would like to focus on bringing new renderers. And we're thinking iPhone, Android, maybe different JavaScript libraries that you'll be able to use on your side. Right, the form definition is just JSON, so it's quite easy to read even by humans, not mentioning computers. Yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot. Yeah. Thank you.